My name is Jordan Redfield Wade. By day, I'm a philanthropist and private investigator, but by night, I protect the people of Newark City in a different way.
My name, champ, is RedWing.
As she lay dying, I promised my mother that I would fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves, and I refused to let her down. I am the defender of Newark City. I am RedWing. Newark City. The City of Progress, as Mayor Edward Fields calls it. He announced the renaming of the city, which was formerly known as New Arklow, at the ceremonial opening of the new iteration of Blackbird Labs at the Center College part of the city about a year ago. To him, that is progress. Science drives the future. I don't know that he's wrong, but one thing is certain. He does not know the effects of science and money like I do. Hell, he doesn't even know Newark City like I do. While the mayor devotes most of his time to these ridiculous ceremonies, there are people in Revenant Heights who are suffering and going hungry due to poverty. Unemployment citywide is skyrocketing, and consequently homelessness and vagrancy run rampant in the streets. The Parcelli mob partially absorbed the McNamara gang and now controls half of Revenant Heights and pretty much all of Falcon Village. Organized crime has been a problem for my entire 27 years of life. The police department ignores the crimes that go on here. Drugs are becoming an even bigger problem than they were before. All the robberies, arson, assaults, muggings, murders. I won't lie to you, it is weird of me to say anything about the money and the science. I am technically the richest person in this city from one of the oldest families. My family owns that science lab and all of the surrounding buildings, and even the college itself. That's a really long story. It was actually my idea to rebuild that fancy laboratory to replace the one that burned down to the ground years ago. I thought maybe somehow it would help. Maybe it'll create jobs, or maybe come up with some kind of medicine or sustainable food supply. Whatever. Even if the city has its issues, it is still my city, and it is my honor to protect it. You know, when the Irish settlers landed here on the edge of Massachusetts in 1710 and gave this place its name, the town elders almost unanimously agreed on New Arklow. But one elder said no. Thomas Wade was his name. He had said he had sensed something, an energy in the soil. He had said, "There is darkness here. There is a darkness in the soil. This is Gather Gansolas, the city without light." He was almost laughed out of town. Almost. Instead, he moved his family onto the land that would become Revenant Heights, the very center of that land. Over the next century, building the city, that was hell for the Wades. They were the only founding family to refuse to own slaves, believing that it was immoral. They created Revenant Heights as a village where slaves would be freed and protected by the Wade family. Because of this, Revenant Heights is still the population with the largest number of people of color. The town called the Wade family crazy, accused Thomas Wade's wife, Ida Redfield, of witchcraft and executed her and Thomas in front of their son and teenage daughter. The name would be changed to Redfield Wade at some point, and the line would continue on despite the almost exile and that public humiliation. The family continued to welcome and house freed and escaped black slaves for 150 years until slavery was officially abolished throughout the country. As was naturally bound to happen, several Redfield Wade family members married and procreated with black folks and Native Americans, those who happened to be here, which, due to further racism, that tarnished the family's reputation further. They still look at the family weird in the streets. And I guess that's where I come in. If you hadn't guessed it already, I am a Wade. My name is Jordan Redfield Wade, son of Terrence and Malia Redfield Wade, one of the few living direct descendants of Thomas Wade. So I guess I have a particular connection to the city or something like that. The blood of this city runs through me. I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you what I look like. I'm roughly 5'10", with black wavy hair, and I'm often told that my skin is the color of glowing salted caramel, and that my hazel eyes are the color of honey with the slightest hint of emerald. I've never been a fan of food comparisons for skin color, because I'm not food, but I can't deny that it is still effective. Anyway, back to the Redfield Wade family. We made investments, formed very fruitful partnerships, and thus we single-handedly built this city after the rest of the founders wound up losing their money when slavery ended. When my ancestors built Revenant Heights, they started educating the children in that area. The schoolhouse they had built became Redfield Academy, which I actually went to. Now, we have multiple public schools, as well as that one private one, some of which I have also gone to. One of the other new Arklow founders started Arklow College. This, of course, led to funding, which was then properly invested. One of my great-great-grandfathers decided to start a medical research facility as a tie-in to Redfield Academy, and also Arklow College. Though mysteriously, Arklow College burned down that same year. The Redfield Wades rebuilt Arklow College as Ark University and took ownership of the university. Somehow we managed to spread into several fields, which wound up consolidated into one company, one collective. Redfield Wade Collective, RWC. They added a technological development branch to the university, as well as a medical branch. This was a very smart move that created and maintained safe jobs for all inhabitants. Revenant Heights was a refuge and a haven for the good, the honest, and the downtrodden. The rest of the founding families of the city, their folks made poor investments, or assumed that building an economy based on owning humans was a good idea. My family handled themselves with love, care, and affection. I know I'm cut from that very same tough cloth, but it's really hard to live up to. But I'm trying. This particular night I was sitting perched next to the gargoyle that sits on top of the courthouse. Here's the only place in the city where I can look out and see the entire city. This city is so beautiful from up here. It looks calm despite all the lights. Looking out across the neighborhoods I grew up in, I could see the harbor. Beyond the harbor and the Massachusetts Bay lies the Atlantic Ocean. And if you're that high up above the ground and breathe deeply, you smell the sea salt in the air. I can feel it on my face as the wind blows. I am jerked out of my saltwater daydream by a voice in my ears. My skin bristles, even though this is a voice I know better than any other voice in the world.
I've got a 211 Henry in the alleyway near the corner of 2nd Street and Washington.
Can I get that first part in regular English, Joanna?
Ugh, what, have you forgotten the police codes? No wonder you didn't make it as a cop. Highway robbery, obvi.
But they aren't on the highway. Also, I quit the force. I didn't get fired or fail out.
It means a mugging, dumbass.
Joanna Lovelace, watch your language. What would Dad say?
Jordan Anderson, Redfield Wade, stop wasting my time and get your ass over there. You have a life to save.
Fine. Be there in... I checked my watch. 2 minutes and 15 seconds. I was 4 blocks away. I unhooked the rope dart from my belt and jumped from the gargoyle's perch. I let the wind rush past my face for a moment before hooking my rope on a streetlight near me. This dampened my fall, so I landed on my feet. I began sprinting the 4 blocks to the alley. I decided the best approach was to come from above. I slung the rope around a fire escape, quickly scaling the wall. I reached the rooftop of the 5-story building quickly and looked back at the clock. 2 minutes and 3 seconds. Damn straight. I looked over the edge on the other side of the building. I saw a man lying on the ground unconscious and a woman fumbling for her purse to grab all of her valuables. A thug was pointing a gun at her and she was crying.
Give me the money, bitch.
I recognized the man as one of Antonio Parcelli's mobster goons. I've got a special grudge against those assholes.
What's taking so long?
Drop the gun.
I had lowered myself behind the man and was swinging my dart in my right hand, preparing to attack and defend.
You're the one they've been talking about, aren't you? The punk with the red mask.
The man aimed his gun at me.
First of all, rude. I'm not the punk here, champ. Second of all...
I paused, realizing I didn't have a second of all, and then I remembered.
I'd tell you my name, but it won't matter if you're smart. If you run back to Parcelli now and leave these people alone, I won't hurt you as badly.
Always give the bad guys an out. That's rule number 1.
I don't think so, punk.
Really? Repeating the same insult as before? Very original, dude. Must be hard to find an intelligent goon these days.
Suit yourself, then. Miss, you may want to move. This will probably get a little bit messy.
The man's finger began to close on the trigger, but the dart knocked the gun from his hands. With surprising speed, he pulled out a knife and lunged at me. I pulled my dart back into my hand and held it to block the swing of his knife. The stainless steel of his knife crashed against my dark steel dart of synthetic metal developed out of Blackbird Labs. The stainless steel chipped, and the goon looked confused and shocked. Within the span of that second, I used the rope attached to my rope dart to create a loop, and then wrapped the loop around his neck, like a noose. I smirked and put my left leg up, and used it to push him back a few paces. His hands dropped the knife as he grasped at his neck, choking from lack of air. I paused in this moment for a second.
My name, champ, is RedWing. When you wake up in lockup, be sure to let all your boys know.
He looked confused when I said wake up, and he was turning slightly purple. I raised my right leg as if to do a roundhouse kick, wrapping the rope around my leg. I brought my foot down hard, and the goon fell in front of my feet, where I delivered a swift yet gentle kick to the head. He was knocked unconscious, and I removed the rope from his neck. He'd live, but he would be very, very sore.
Really? Telling him your code name, huh?
I could practically hear Joe's raised eyebrow through the phone line. I ignored her comments. I looked up at the woman who hadn't moved from her husband's side.
Ma'am, are you okay?
I noticed the blood on her hands and shirt. It was a lot.
Ma'am, are you okay? Does this man need medical attention?
He's been shot. He's bleeding from the chest.
It had missed the heart, but if the bleeding continued, he'd bleed out. I turned to the woman.
Hold him steady, prop up his head. Lovebird, notify the authorities and send an ambulance.
Don't call me that. Okay, roger that. They are en route, but it's going to be a few minutes, so you need to get out of there.
I have to help this guy. He'll bleed out if I don't.
I muted the comm device right before Joe could protest. I turned my attention back to the bleeding man and his wife.
I need you to hold him very still and close your eyes, okay? This will help a little bit, but I need you to not freak out. Can you do that?
She nodded and I held my hands over the wound. My eyes glowed a slightly red color as I commanded the energy to form a tiny force field around the wound on his chest. My hands glowed and the red matter responded. My friend Kieran Lacroix, a kid that I've known since middle school, had taught me a bit about anatomy back then, and I've always thanked him in these moments for that lesson. He's the only one I know who can keep up with and possibly exceed Joanna's preternatural abilities in practical biology. Within the sphere, atom by atom, I focused hard on extracting the bullet and rebuilding the injury. The skin proceeded to knit itself back together, leaving no scar or mark of any sort. I heard the woman gasp as the bullet hit the ground, and my eyes stopped glowing.
Who are you? How did you do that?
It is my policy not to answer those kinds of questions for civilians, so I used my usual response instead.
Ma'am, I'm one of the good guys. Now, your husband's lost a fair bit of blood. Make sure you tell the paramedics that. They will be here in just about 20 seconds. He will be perfectly fine. But I've got to get going now.
It was true, I could already hear the sirens. I stood up and swung my dart towards another fire escape, swinging up towards the roof. The woman called after me.
Wait, sir! Thank you!
Don't mention it! At least, don't mention me! Especially not to the cops.
I stopped on the roof, looking back at her.
Oh, and lady, invest in some pepper spray. This is the rough part of the city.
I raised my hand in farewell before vanishing above the ledge. I jumped from roof to roof, heading deeper into the city. I remembered that I'd shut my comm off, so I switched it back on. Sorry, Joe.
You really cut that close. I hate your theatrics. This is why they make wine, you know that, right?
You know that's false. They initially made wine to be a dietary aid and a diuretic. Anyway, just relax. I didn't want there to be any sort of body count. Should I return to the bunker?
Yeah, it seems like a slow night. Besides, Parcelli is going to be pissed. This is the 5th goon you've gotten arrested in 3 days.
That's good. We're doing our job then.
You know, I think I need a legit code name. If you keep saying Joe in front of people, they're bound to figure it out. Also, stop trying to make Lovebird happen. Lovebird will never, ever happen.
How about Pigeon Girl?
I will literally kill you in your sleep.
Jeez, lighten up, Joe.
What's our format for names? A color and a bird?
I mean, kind of. Red is a color and wing is a part of a bird?
I'm thinking White Hawk.
You know what? I don't hate that one. We'll figure it out. I scaled to the top of a 12-story building and looked down. Later, Joe.
Get back safely.
Joe wished me that every time. It always makes me smile to hear. I responded the way I always do.
Always do, sis.
I switched off the earpiece and looked toward the cathedral. My breath caught in my throat. I noticed at first the moon, which was much larger and more full than it usually seemed. Silhouetted against the moon was the figure of a man. The figure was staring right at me, and though I couldn't see his face, I knew he was staring right into my eyes. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't grab my weapon, but I began to walk toward him. He began to walk toward me as well, with a little more purpose, it seemed. I was so entranced by him that I didn't notice when I walked directly off the edge. I suddenly felt myself falling, but it felt as though I couldn't move. The ground rushed toward my face, and then everything went dark. Meanwhile, across town, a man with bright green eyes, bloodshot from lack of sleep and stress, and the beginnings of a 5 o'clock shadow rose from the bed. The partner who was still in the bed sat up, placing a hand on the dragon tattoo on his left pectoral muscle, still breathing heavily, filling his lungs. His brown eyes had followed green eyes around his room. This is the pattern every few nights or so. The green-eyed man sends a text saying he's at the door. They would have a round or two, and then he would leave. The sex was certainly electric, but there was a distance, and the dragon-tattooed guy started to feel it. It was as though the green-eyed man wasn't thinking about him while they were, well, couldn't really call it making love, could you? The brown-eyed boy heard himself say it and couldn't stop.
You know, you could stay the night. I don't think it would hurt.
The green-eyed man cast a glance over his shoulder. There was a dismissive chill to it.
I can't. I have to work. Graveyard shift tonight.
It's after midnight and you don't have to work. You just don't want to be here. Wouldn't want to get too close? Why? Are you afraid you'll start to actually care? You'll have to look at me for a change?
I can see you perfectly fine.
I think you know what I meant.
I certainly did. You don't want to be close to me.
And who decided that?
I did. I have a tendency of breaking the beautiful things I find. I don't want to be the reason you break.
The green-eyed man finishes buttoning his shirt. He put on his jacket and made his way toward the door. He opened it, but stopped to look back.
Thank you. And maybe one night I will stay, but that night isn't tonight.
Their eyes met, and the green-eyed man in the uniform closed the door behind him. The brown-eyed boy looks out his window, seeing a large, bright, full moon flooding his room with a pale blue light. He places a hand on his neck, closing his eyes. He shakes his head a little and falls back onto the bed. He takes a deep breath, at least reveling in the smell of the green-eyed man lingering on his pillows. He turned the light off, and he opened his eyes one more time.
Where do you go when you're here? What are you thinking about when you're here?
In another part of the city, the police have brought in the criminal that I had helped them capture. 2 other officers sit in the main lobby doing desk work.
And another one. That's quite a few in the past few days.
I feel like our department should bake that Max Tunk a cake. He makes all of our jobs a hell of a lot easier. A cakewalk, if you will.
Ugh, I won't, thanks. Wait, so that's what you think of him? That masked red guy?
I mean, I call him like I see him. These days, it's hard to keep tabs on organized crime. We lost half of that unit after that huge corruption scandal in that department.
I still can't believe Marty was the only snitch, and yet they got rid of half of the department. You'd think it would have been someone like Buzz Needle. Why'd they keep that one?
Oh my god, I hate that creep. I caught him one time sniffing panties in the locker room.
Did you report him to Chief Lovelace? Or go to HR?
Nah, I punched him in the face. It was much faster.
Yes, ma'am. Good job, sweetie.
Why, thank you.
Maybe they can catch Buzz Needle in a sting operation.
Oh, that was really bad.
But seriously, you think this vigilante guy is okay? I'm worried he's going to create a bunch of copycats. Like, what if everyone starts dressing up in spandex and beating people with bats and whatever?
That seems like a specific kind of fear. Also, he hasn't used any bats, from what I've heard.
I feel like I'm more worried about the folks who are running around in spandex. I see enough of that on the weekends. Oh, for wrestling? Literally the only sport I can watch.
You're afraid of copycats, though? From what I've heard, this one's like a ninja or something.
You know what else I found out?
What?
That he's got a really nice ass.
Who told you that?
My imagination.
You're such a perv.
Lies. That's Buzz, remember? In any case, I guess I won't complain for now, but I tell you what, if we catch that RedWing character, I've got a lot of questions for him.
Oh, same girl. Same. Speaking of questionable characters, wasn't Dean supposed to be on night duty?
Chief gave him the day off.
Lord, you know that man ain't been right for a year. How does he even stay on the force?
Nepotism, if I had to guess. You know he was dating the chief's son?
They broke up, though, didn't they? The chief was ready to kick him out. If he weren't such a good cop, I reckon he would've.
Listen, breakups are hard. They hurt. The only way we can get over them is time, forgiveness of the self, and resilience. But all three of those are a process. He'll get there eventually.
Oh, look at you, getting all philosophical and whatnot.
I have my moments. I'm gonna get some coffee. It's a slow night. Do you want to pick a podcast to listen to?
Oh, sure. Okay, I found these two great ones. One is called Wine and Crime, and the other one is Yesterqueer.
I awoke in an apartment I didn't recognize with the sunlight hitting my face. My head hurt, kind of like a hangover, but bitchier somehow. It was empty, except for the mattress that I was laying on, a few tables and chairs, and a blanket. It was a big apartment, so I was definitely in the ritzier north side, roughly 3 miles from Blackburn Labs, which was on the same block as my office. I sat up and realized my mask and suit had been taken off and replaced by a gray t-shirt and gray sweatpants. I suddenly felt a little exposed. Whoever had brought me here had seen me almost completely naked. I began to remember the pieces of the night before. I remembered blacking out while I fell. Had I hit the ground? It didn't appear so unless I'd developed super healing. Who had helped me? Had a civilian broken my fall? Who was that figure in the moonlight? I saw my suit over in the corner, folded neatly and tied securely with my rope dart. Sticking out of it was a little note. I picked it up and read it aloud.
Sorry, I had to leave. We'll meet again soon. Blackbird.
Blackbird? Who is Blackbird? Do I know a Blackbird? I don't know anyone named Blackbird. Was Blackbird the mysterious figure? Why would the mysterious figure go through all of that effort to help me when he doesn't know me? Better question, how did he help me? I was literally walking directly off of a roof. Is he like me somehow? Wait, why did I walk off of that roof? I held onto the note and changed into my suit. I put my mask on. I looked out the window. Damn it. It's light out. I'm probably late for work. Granted, being late to open my own detective agency is usually not a big deal. Fairly sure my boss wouldn't care. But Joe probably would. I really didn't want to hear that lecture. I walked to the window with the fire escape and exited the building. I brought the sweatpants and shirt with me. They belonged to Blackbird, and I intended to return them to him. I chose the rooftop route and made the way to mine and Joe's Revenant Village apartment. Joe would probably still be asleep, and I could silently sneak in. When she wakes, I'll have her examine the note for DNA. I will find him. I don't know why that's so important, but it is. I have too many questions. I must find Blackbird. A middle-aged man in a three-piece double-breasted suit with an eggshell and ivory Homburg hat on his head, holding a fancy gold-tipped cane, is sitting on an ornate, dark, black throne in an abandoned, rundown warehouse. The warehouse is lit only by hundreds of black candles that cast an eerie light over everything seen. A woman in a dark violet floor-length gown sits on the throne next to him, an amethyst manicured hand on his. Before him, kneeling on the ground, is a young man with dark, almost black hair, a black tank top, and camouflage pants. The young man is staring at his master's feet, not daring to meet his master's eyes. The master regards his protege with a wicked grin. It is eerily quiet in that room. The master speaks.
I felt it this evening. The spell has been broken. They have found one another. It's time to set the plan in motion. By the end of this week, we will rise. We will have more power than we could ever imagine.
Indeed we shall, my love.
My lord, is there enough for me as well?
My dear boy, you will rule alongside us. You will have everything your heart desires. I will be the king, and you will be the prince. I have a gift for you.
The woman Violet stands and steps forward holding an item. She stands before the young man, and using both hands, she places the crown on his head. The young man smiles, reaches up, and tilts the crown ever so slightly to the side. The woman reaches down and kisses the young man on the forehead.
And what a fine prince you'll be. Rise, my boy. Take your place next to us.
The woman in violet raises her hands toward the opposite side of the man in white. She whispers a word, but her speech is different.
Solio.
There is a surge of energy in the room, and a matching throne to the one that the man in white is sitting in appears with a flourish. The woman takes her seat, and the young man tentatively rises before taking his seat on his own throne. He reclines into the comfort, relaxing and embracing that feeling of power slowly filling him. A wide grin spreads across his face.
And now, let the games begin.
Thank you for listening to RedWing, the audio drama podcast. RedWing is written, directed, and produced by J.V. Hampton Van Sant. That's me. The cast of RedWing includes J.V. Hampton Van Sant, Amanda Jacobson, Chris Green, Dane Shiner, Simon Weeks, Christine Osimo, Skylar Paring, John Buckley, Brittany Nicholson, Lucy Fitzgerald, Kenyon Lang, Katie Hearn Church, Nathan Foster, Atticus Jackson, Rhett Hall, and Kiara Jeter as Birdkeeper. RedWing's official musician extraordinaire is Nico from We Talk of Dreams. Additional music from Kevin MacLeod. The RedWing logo is designed by J.V. Hampton Van Sant, and official character art is from the fantastic Click Art Studios. We would like to thank the following shows for being inspirations and or being involved in the podcast itself. Wine and Crime, Crime and Color, Queen's Podcast, Brain Trust Brothers Podcast, Gravity Beard, The No Sleep Podcast, Conjuria, The Cryptid Keeper, Deliberations, Getting Off Podcast, Spirits Podcast, the entire family at Blazing Caribou Studios, and everyone in the #Audio Drama Sunday family. If you would like to support the show, buy official RedWing merchandise, or if you just want to stay in touch, all of our links are in the show notes and on our website, redwingpodcast.com. Be well, stay safe, and fly high, heroes.